Okay, so what I'm going to look at in this class is blogs. Now, most of you at this stage, I think, would have heard of blogs, and you probably know what they are. But blogs are very interesting as well because the way they kind of came about and the kinds of things they're used for are part of a wider phenomenon that I'm going to try and explain also. You see, you spent all that time in SOF 6007 learning how to make web pages and do CSS and stuff. And some of it was kind of hard. I mean, it wasn't really hard, but it was still, required a good bit of skill. And about, certainly 10 years ago, but maybe even 5 years ago, if the local girls' volleyball team or something needed some kind of web presence, they would have had to call someone like you. So it was a great way to make a few bob, or at least a great way to meet girls. And because to have some kind of a web presence, you needed to know HTML. You need to have some knowledge of HTML, and you needed to be able to put that up on a web server somewhere so it would all work. But it's clear that there was demand for something that would allow people to say their bit on the web without having the inconvenience of having to learn HTML. Come on in. Hello. Hi. No, goodbye. Yeah. And it took him a while too. I mean, no. So there was certainly demand for people who wanted to participate sort of in the online conversation, so to speak, without having to learn HTML. And blogs came along, or came into their own, and then so did Facebook. I think there were Facebooks before Facebook, and they didn't quite take off. Facebook became Facebook, I think, because it was the Facebook at exactly the right time. I mean, you're probably too young to remember Bebo, are you? No? Good, I don't feel so old, so. Or maybe you're just particularly lame, I'm not sure. But so there was a time when you'd be saying to yourself, God, I'm so lucky I got those shares in Bebo. And now people be like, who? What? So there was a thing way before that even. I mean, at least 10 years ago, a thing called Friendster, where you would build up a sort of a social network where you'd have your profile and you'd be linked to your friends and people could see your friends. And so I think Facebook happened at just the right time. And blogging happened as well. It came along at just the right time. And that's one of the reasons, I think, why blogs are used for so much more than what they originally intended. Because they became they were a very, very easy way for people to, say their spoke online without having to learn HTML. Now, unfortunately, it put a lot of computing students out of beer money because you didn't need So I've seen businesses now where there's no website anymore. There's just maybe a blog or a Facebook page or both. As such, they're not even on the web, so to speak, anymore. Do you know what I mean? There was a time, if you were Dan's Fabulous Birthday Cakes or something, you'd be danscakes.com, and someone would go there and there'd be a HTML page there and pictures of your cakes. I know there might be, you know, a Dan's Cakes blog, and, you know, find me on Facebook at, you know, facebook.com/Dan's Cakes, whatever. So in some respects, Facebook has also managed to be in the right place at the right time and make it easy for people to put their content online. So one of the things we look at in this module, and one of the things that was a big deal for this module when it was written, were content management systems, they're called. So if you go to the CIT website, for example, and let's say there's some information about your course on the website, and Jim in the office down there, he wants to change that. He logs on to this content management system and changes information that's in the database. And then when you go to the CIT website, that page is generated. It takes the stuff out of the database and generates the page. Now we look at content management systems in more detail, but there was a time, I think, when this module would have been all about content management systems. But it's kind of like, well, why would I want a content management system? For most people now, I've already got one. It's called Facebook. You know, why would I want one? And we're going to look at blogs as an example of a content management system, mostly because obviously we weren't going to let you modify the CIT database. You know, I mean, I might get someone to give me the password if I promise to be careful, and maybe we could go in and change 1 or 2 words about the description of this course or something, and see how that works. But we'll see. We'll see. Now, so what we're going to look at today is what's a blog, the main features of a blog. I'm going to try and talk a bit about blogs and social software and maybe give you some examples. Okay? But we'll see. I probably won't get through it all today either, but so the idea of the blog came from weblog, right? Which became blog. So you can imagine, gosh, it's hard being this old. I don't know whether to say Captain Kirk or Captain Picard or Captain Janeway or who's that Muppet fella?
Archer.
Archer, yeah. But if you were...
You're 10 years out, man.
Out of what? Was there more? Did I miss something? No?
No, it's back to Kirk now.
Back to Kirk. Oh, of course, back to Kirk now, yeah. Oh, New Kirk is cool. Yeah. Anyway, so like, but you can imagine Captain Kirk, whichever one of them, you know, having his log, you know, ship's log. Like, it kind of came from this, came from that notion. So weblog is sort of an online diary. And initially that's what they were. So you were an Uber nerd and you wanted to tell the world about your life. And so you had a blog. And to have a blog, you probably had your own web server and everything, or you had certainly you had control of a web server somewhere and you'd all the software installed and stuff. And some businesses realized, actually, there's kind of a demand for this kind of thing. We could make this easier, you know, for people to have their blogs. And so blogs were really the first mass content management systems where any pleb could come along and type in their spiel and it would go up on the web. And it's interesting that because it was so easy, like the sort of diary aspect of it got lost a bit. You know, it was meant to be sort of a personal diary type thing, but it was because it was the only show in town in terms of publishing your stuff online. Blogs became much more than that. So if you wanted to have a rant about Bush being evil, again, question which one, then, you know, a blog was a great place to do that. You could have a blog and you could say how horrible he was or things like that. Okay? So every nutter and their dog has a blog now. Okay? And I mean, if the internet was full of crap before, it was full of crap from people who had to go in, learn HTML before they could publish it. But now, anyone can put their stuff online in minutes thanks to something like blogging. Okay? So there's been a great democratizing effect. Now, as in any sort of democracy type situation where you have lots of free speech, you have to kind of put up with the Muppets. You know, that's the price you pay for the ability to have all this free speech. Okay, so that's an interesting issue. Now, so some features of a blog there. They're easy to use. They're organized by date, and that's a hangover. That's a hangover from the whole diary thing. Okay, very often they allowed readers to contribute. They're syndicated. They can have enclosures. That's a bit technical, but it leads on to something else later, which is very important. They can have automatic searching and indexing, and then they connect to other blogs as well in a kind of a social way. So, like I said, before you wanted to put online all about your super cool volleyball team, you probably had to go in and learn a bit of HTML, some CSS. Had to learn some FTP, you know, so you could probably FTP it up to the server. You might have to know a bit about configuring the server, and you might need to know a bit about RSS. You might need JavaScript, maybe, you know, for a few things. So you needed a nerd to do this for you, okay? And there were many of them, so everything was fine. But it was a lot of work, right? Blogs made all that hassle go away. So you don't need any expertise at all to publish a blog. And so you just provide the content. So if you're talking about, you know, news from the latest volleyball championships, you just log on, you type that in, ding, 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 and it'll get published. And then there are templates you can have that will control the look and the feel. So most blogging services come with templates, and then you can modify them if you want and things like that. And you can do really cool things. You can even email them. A lot of the blogs allow you to email in your entries. That's because these are around for a long time now. So if you were on the go, like now we have phones where you can just, you know, you just go on the web and do it. But blogs predate smartphones really by a good few years. So so I have mine set up, for example, when I'm doing my classes, the last class of the day, you know, I usually do that entry on the way home, and I just send an email. I don't bother actually logging in with the browser. I just send an email to a special address that I don't give out, and it goes straight then to the blog. You know, some of them are set up you can actually text your entry from your phone. Now again, you might say, well, but I have Twitter for that. This predates Twitter by a good bit as well. Okay, and several authors can share a blog as well. So for your volleyball team, you know, the branch officers, you know, the club might all have an account, and so someone might, you know, the finance guy might be saying, lads, you have to have your money in for the bus by whatever day. You know, he might put that entry in the blog. The budding reporter who has a very picturesque description of the latest match that you played and won might have his account posted. So a bunch of people can share a blog, can be authors. Okay. Now they're organized by date, and that's just a hangover from the diary times, when a blog was an online diary. So like if you think George W. Bush is the biggest bollocks that ever walked the earth, does it really matter when you thought that? You know, the date isn't such a big deal. It's an opinion you have about him, and you know, who cares whether it was on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday that you had that opinion. But blogs, by their nature, are organized by date. And that's just the way it happens. If you're a lecturer, they're great, because in our own minds we organize all the stuff we did in class by date. You never say to someone, you might say to someone like, what did we do last Tuesday? You don't say, what did we do in section 3, of the module? We, both students and lecturers, organize content for courses by date. So that makes blogs ideal for lecturers, really, because they map the mental map we have of things. So they're automatically time-stamped, but for a lot of blogs, the date isn't really important. It's just a way to publish something online. Very often an opinion. Blogs have attracted a lot of opinion. Now there are also news blogs, with actual facts. But the facts to opinion ratio on blogs tends to be skewed in the opinion ratio. Okay, so a lot of people use blogs just because they're easy. The date isn't really a feature. So blogs allow readers to contribute sometimes. So readers can leave comments. I don't know how many times I fixed that typo. I said, how many times I fixed that typo? It's still there. So readers can leave comments, and the blog owner can set restrictions, and vet the comments. And so, in blogs, we saw the beginnings of what we call the read-write web, or Web 2.0. So there was a time in my day when I was a little boy, the web was just, you went online and you read stuff. So when you were on the web, you were a consumer of content. But in blogs, we saw the beginnings of the read-write web, or the Web 2.0, where you weren't only a consumer of content, you were a producer of content. So you didn't just read stuff from the web, you wrote to the web as well. So when you go on Facebook, you're not only reading other people's posts, you're also posting for the most part. You're doing both things. And so blogs allowed the public to leave comments. So they became forums for discussion, things like that. You can generally set the way you want the comments to work. You can set it up so that anyone can post a comment to your blog, for example, or you can set it up so that they must at least identify themselves, or you can set it up so that only certain people can post comments to the blog. You can also set it up so that if a person that's authorized to post sends a post in, it gets published immediately, or the owner of the blog can review it first. So I used to allow anyone to post comments to my blog anonymously, but I would vet them. So they wouldn't actually go out unless I saw them first. But I even stopped doing that. I thought it'd be a good way for students to provide honest feedback. But as you know, anonymity causes people to do strange things, so I actually had to stop. Some of the stuff was just horrendous. I can show you some, and that was the stuff that was, publishable. I mean, unreal. So, so for your blog, you probably, if you're setting up a blog, you probably want to at least vet the comments. No, blogs are syndicated. This is a. I was going to say this is a hard thing to explain, but it's probably not just hard for me to explain. I never seem to quite nail it. But what you can do is, with every post, let me see now. Okay, so we have our volleyball club example, right? You could set it up. I wish my class was that much fun. You could set it up so that instead of having someone to come back to the website every week, for example, to see what the story, is there any news, they can subscribe to your RSS feed, it's called, with some sort of a tool. Now, typically it's their browser, or nowadays it's just you set it up in your phone. And what that feels like is whenever there's news, whenever there's something new posted, you get told, and it appears automatically on your browser, on your reader, on your device. Now, in reality, that application is going checking all the time to see, but you don't have to. So it feels like it's coming in. So if you subscribe to, say, news alerts on your phone from the RTE website, now I don't mean the text service, but if you have some sort of thing on your phone where you've set it up and you see the latest headlines. Good example. You know, downstairs in the cafeteria where, you know, it tells you the news. No, not the register for your modules news, like the we've declared war on China news. Okay, the big news. That's coming from the RTE website via technology that's called RSS. And so the person that set that up has subscribed to RTE's RSS news feed. Now they could also sign up to the sports news feed or even the celebrity news feed. I'm sure there's one of those. And that stuff then just like appears automatically. So what you can do is on your blog, you can set it up so that there's an RSS feed, and then whenever you make a new post, all of the people that are interested in that will get it automatically. They get like a little one-liner or something and maybe a bit of the content. And then if they want to see the full thing, they can click on it and go. So you might decide, for example, to add to your list of RSS feeds that you're following the RSS feed for this class. And so then with every new class, up will come a little, you know, little snippet on your phone or on your computer, on your browser, whatever. And you'll see that as a news item. And then you can go look at the real thing. Now, this is starting to sound very Facebooky, isn't it? You see, and you know, in blogging, I think, are the origins of an awful lot of things that we see on the web now that really have come out of the blogging, which is why it's so important to go back to the origins of it. I mean, the idea that you could automatically catch up on someone's news without having to go to their website, like, that seems so obvious now that we have something like Facebook. But it wasn't that obvious before. And the origins of it are in this RSS technology. I haven't told you what it stands for because it doesn't stand for anything. So people say it stands for things like real simple syndication or something or whatever. If in an interview someone asks you what RSS stands for, they're trying to trick you. Okay? See if you're a waffler or a bullshitter or not. Okay? Because it doesn't really stand for anything. RSS is just RSS. Okay? So if a nerd asks you what RSS stands for in an interview, he wants to see if you're a waffler or not. Now, maybe the job requires waffle, and maybe it doesn't. But it doesn't stand for anything, and while we're on the subject, PHP doesn't stand for anything either. So just remember that. The day will come and you'll say, ha ha, ha ha. I remember that day. Now, so unfortunately, the term subscribe is very often associated with payment of money. Well, in the context of RSS, that subscription, we're not talking about pay. You don't pay. You know, but you do agree to have stuff sent to you on a regular basis without you going looking for it. Okay, but sometimes people get put off when they see a button that says subscribe. They're thinking, well, how much is this going to cost me? No. So, in order to subscribe to an RSS feed, users usually need a small application called an aggregator. And there was a time when these were separate applications. But now most browsers have the aggregator built in, and most email applications have the aggregator built in. But of course, now that we're back in the land of kind of nice, small, little, single-purpose apps, obviously you'll get apps that do it as well. And depending on the phone that you have, I can guarantee you there's somewhere on that where you will put in an RSS, the URL for an RSS feed, and the things will appear automatically on your phone. Which I probably can't show you here, because of course we're not connected to the network. But when my screensaver kicks in, you may have seen it from time to time, it displays the headlines from the RT News website. So that's using RSS. Okay, so that's the idea. That's the big deal with RSS. It's quite a big deal because because the RSS feeds can be embedded in other websites, and also it's a way for businesses to communicate with their customers. So, like some news agencies now say to PR firms, listen, don't send us any more press releases now, okay? You just give us your RSS feed, you give us the URL for that, and if you have something you think we're interested in, put it in your RSS feed, and we'll take a look or not. So Apple has an RSS feed with all of its Apple news, and you can be sure that all of the tech journalists in the world have that in their list of feeds that they're following. And you'll find that if you're in the business of celebrity journalism, I'm sure there's a few feeds you'd be following as well. What's that famous website, Perez Hilton or something? You probably know about these things more than I do. Okay. Anyway, so I've done a crap job of explaining that, but it's probably easier in practice than it is in theory to see what's going on. Now, this is very important then, okay? So we had the blogs, and that was going well. Someone developed RSS. Actually, he was in the news lately. He just killed himself. He was in the news recently. Yeah, probably. I don't know if he would have gone to jail, but anyway, it's very sad. So the guy who developed RSS, that was a huge hit. And then someone else thought, well, actually, what if we allowed you not to just include snippets of text? What if we allowed you to have like attachments? And people thought, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I don't know what we do with it, but sure, we give it a go. Okay? And from that then, the fact that you could have an attachment in the RSS feed allowed people to put audio attachments in. And then that gave us podcasting, which you may or may not be familiar with. But podcasting, comes again from blogging. We had the RSS feeds. From the RSS feeds, we had the enclosures. And that led then to podcasting, which was a whole new medium, really, that we didn't have before. So it's also a very good example of how, if you set up the technology in the right way, people can take it places and do things with it that you hadn't actually imagined. I mean, when someone suggested you have enclosures in the RSS feeds, people ask you, what harm could it do, sir? Sure, go on, so we'll modify the standard a bit to allow that. But people had never imagined what people would do with it. In fact, MP3 is another example. People had never imagined you would use it for coding audio all by itself. And obviously, entire industries have been built on MP3 now. Okay, so I'm glad I started with blogging in this module, because I think it's it opened the doors to lots and lots of different things that we're familiar with now. Okay, a great thing you can do with once you have your blog as well is people can, like the site that organizes it, you can do searching automatically. If you had your own website, before Google, it was a real pain to actually allow people to search it. Whereas that's much easier now, No, blogs can also connect to other blogs really well. So you can have in your blog, you can have what's called a blog role. And that's like links to other blogs. So again, in this you're starting to see the beginnings of like a social network of a kind. Remember, this is all pre-Facebook. And there's a fairly complicated thing you can do, but if I have a blog and you have a blog and you see an interesting post on my blog and you want to post a comment, you can put the comment on my blog, or you could put the comment on your own blog because you're thinking, well, I wrote it, I want it to be on my blog. So you put it on your blog and you can link them up so that someone seeing my blog, seeing my post, will see that there's a response to that on your blog, and someone reading your blog will see that what you're writing about is a response to what's on my blog, so they can connect up that way as well. But you don't see that much of it now, to be honest. It was tricky enough. Okay. There are two ways you could host your own blog on a server, just as you could host your own web server. But like, why would you bother? Okay. So there are services like Blogger, and that's the one we're going to use. I'm going to make you actually set up a blog. And these services are usually free, and they make their money from advertising, some of them, and you might have limited control over the ads. On Blogger, there aren't any ads unless you want there to be ads. But it's run by Google, so they have set up ways that you can have ads. So that's why they do it. Don't want to set up your own blog server. I got a list of there's a list of popular blogs there. I think this is like sort of the top 20 blogs at any one time. As with most things, there are maybe 5 or 6 that are always popular, and then some things that come and go. And politics and celebrities are the main things. There was one blog called the Huffington Post, which was sold for millions and millions and millions. But the great thing about blogs really is that you can find interesting stuff, just kind of some person that has something interesting to say, or if there's a particular thing that you're interested in, there's probably a blog about it. Like if Harry Potter was starting in Hogwarts now, do you know what I mean? There'd be the Hogwarts, Harry Potter's blog or something. So depending on your interest, there's a blog about it. So it's become a great way for people to publish online about the things that they're interested in. What time is it there? 4:02. I'm going to skip that. So I guess one of the things to remember when you're blogging, and the same with Facebook, I think, and putting stuff online, is you should ask yourself how comfortable you are, with making yourself, public. Like some lecturers, for example, think I am completely mad, to be putting online, what happened in class, let alone recordings of what happened in class. I mean, that's considered especially insane. Generally, when people ask me for advice about blogging, I ask them how much they wear when they're in the sauna. And when they calm down, I explain to them that, different people have different levels of comfort, So if you're the kind of person that, well, let's just say they're same-sex saunas, just so there's no confusion, okay? So let's imagine they're same-sex, no imagination, no please, but let's suppose we're talking about same-sex saunas, okay? If you're the kind of guy that's sitting in the sauna, with no towel, then you're a very different kind of person from the guy that's, in the gym showering in his underpants. Like, so there's different people have different comfort levels about how public and private they are. And you should make sure that your online privacy settings, so to speak, are appropriate for you. And some people are totally paranoid about posting anything online, and some people post too much online. And I'm sure you see this even amongst your friends. I'm horrified at the extent to which people post too much online, because it never goes away, like, ever. I mean, when you delete your Gmail, it's in the pile of emails that are flagged as deleted. It's not actually gone, And I mean, I have found stuff that I wrote maybe 20 years ago, before the web, before there was a web as we know it. And I've found that archived online. Now, thankfully, it wasn't terribly embarrassing. I was a bit of a troll in my day, and it was just too easy. And but it's still there, it's still there somewhere. So if that can happen to me before there was even a web, do you know what I mean? Then everything you say and do and put online is there forever. So so you need to be careful. At the same time, you can't say nothing either. I mean, if you're going for a job, for example, someone's going to Google your name, and if you're going for a job in web development, and you've never posted a blog or never had a blog, you're not on Facebook, you're not on Google Plus. Do you know what I mean? If you're off the grid, what kind of a web developer are you? So, but I mean, you can't. I don't think in your profession you can actually live off the grid. So you have to learn to manage your life on the grid. Do you know what I mean? If you're, I don't know. Actually, it's hard to even think of an example where you can live totally off the grid. But I mean, certainly in my business, there's no. The rewards aren't financial. The only currency really is reputation. So for an academic to be off the grid is just not an option. You might as well just crawl into your hole and give classes to rabbits or something. So it's something to think about. Think about how comfortable you are and how much of yourself you want to expose to the world, metaphorically, obviously, and be mindful of that in your online interactions. Okay? So I'm going to get you in the labs to set up a blog, and you're going to then post an entry, at least one entry to the blog every week. Yes, sir?
Do you do that on our own time or in the lab?
You'll set it up in the lab, and then some weeks I may have something better for you to do, and other weeks I may not. So, but I would anticipate you probably doing the blogging for the most part in your own time. Yes, sir?
Do you use Blogspot or can you use something else?
I'm going to get you to use Blogger. The reason I'm going to get you to use Blogger is that Blogger is part of Google Land, and your CIT email addresses are actually, your CIT student accounts are actually Google Apps accounts. So what you will do is you'll log into your CIT email, go to blogger.com, it'll ask you for your date of birth, and you'll be done. Because Google will know who you are. Okay? Please put in the correct date of birth, by the way. Did I get you to set up Google Plus accounts? Right. Okay. So it probably won't even ask you for your date of birth then. Google probably knows all about you already. No. I'm glad I said that because, of course, quite literally, Google does know all about you already. I mean, Google knows everything about you. I mean, they drove a car to your house, for fuck's sake. Like. So, I mean, you know, that privacy cat is out of the bag. Like, okay. So we will discuss some of the things like that as well in this class. Okay. So I see you in the labs then, half of you, and I see the other half of you in another lab. Great stuff, so guys. Thanks very much.